When you talk about Ashley and his life, art is everything.
Ashley is a mega talent. His work to the canon of the arc and fullness of art history is just exceptional.
He was a master of so many different techniques and mediums. He influenced everyone that met him.
Before Ashley, there were no Black children's book illustrators. That genre didn't really exist. He's not really getting the recognition, but he's opening doors and making things possible.
Making his place, in the world, and also making a place for all of us as Black people in the world through his work. That is part of why he was the incredible, generous person that he was, because he was intent on making a difference.
Ashley always excelled in art, and he also saw the speed bumps in his life. In high school, his teachers recommended that he take his portfolio down to the art schools in New York City because they thought so highly of his potential. The way he was rebuffed was he was told he had a magnificent portfolio, but why would they waste a space on a colored person?
So he went to Cooper Union, and as he says that there they did not see color. You took a blind entry test. And then even when he was in World War II, he managed to go to the Glasgow School of Art while he was stationed in Scotland.
Ashley was not going to let something like World War II get in the way of his passion and his commitment to making art. So he was making art to survive, and he was surviving to make art.
After seeing so much death and destruction in World War II, he needed to create, needed to make, constantly making. That could almost be a definition of living, is making. Ashley's paintings for a long time was really about keeping this idea of being alive, adding beauty to the world, bringing something, this is the way of existing in this life.
How did Ashley Bryan, a boy that grew up in the Bronx, end up on Islesford, Maine? In 1946, Ashley was one of the first group of students to spend the summer in the inaugural program at the Skowhegan School of Art.
That summer made such an impression on him. He and some of his fellow students visited Mount Desert Island.
Probably actually climbed Cadillac Mountain. And as Ashley looked out over the Cranberry Islands, he said, "This is where I want to live."
He was so taken by the spirit of cooperation within the island community. It recalled stories that his parents and his grandparents told about life on the island of Antigua.
If you visited Ashley's home, before entering, you saw written, "Welcome home." And that was to you. And that is a sentiment that Ashley gave whoever entered that door. You're home and you will be delighted.
What a magical experience, as anyone who's ever visited Ashley in his home and studio on the island, it's just remarkable.
When you look around, no space has been left blank, and yet every space has a sense of purpose, has a sense of design to it. Anybody that comes into this house for the first time is just absolutely gobsmacked.
I think the one thing that everyone who either has the experience of having met Ashley in person or through his work takes away his joy that he is so giving.
He was just incredibly generous of spirit, generous in how he engaged with absolutely everyone, truly engaged. So when you were in the presence of Ashley, you knew you were seen, you knew you were heard, you knew you were valued, and he gave so much of himself.
As soon as you meet Ashley, as soon as you have a conversation with Ashley, you've become family. And that's his approach to life.
I'm an illustrator, I'm an artist illustrator, and that's how I became aware of Ashley. He was different than a lot of the other illustrators. Ashley, when you meet him, you can tell that the children's book illustration is just a part of what he is doing. He is doing something else. He is communicating.
Everything he said had the duality of being deeply resonant and soulful, but also you were always learning something from him. I've been in conversation with many people, especially non-BIPOC folks, white folks, who often honor how much Ashley thought about multiracial democracy and everyone being the same. But in actuality, Ashley was very political. Ashley was very much an activist. For Ashley, his intentional presence on Islesford as a Black man who grew up in New York City, who had to navigate racism and discrimination throughout his entire life, that was a political act to make that decision to be there and live there on an island where he was literally the only Black person. There was never a moment where you felt like Ashley was being anyone other than who he is. And so in that way, he gave everyone permission to really be who they were.
The things that I got from Ashley as an adult, I wish that I had access to those as a younger person. Not even access. I wish that I had known that Ashley existed, that a person like Ashley existed when I was 5, when I was 10. I wish that I had known that there was a man way, way, way up north on a little island, that freezes in the winter. But inside his house, there are 1,000 objects, that are beautiful objects hanging up, and toys and everything, and jelly beans on the table, and grilled cheese sandwich that he has for you. That, I wish I had known that. I think that would have opened the world for me,